On a wonderfully average day, people gather at the World Championships arena, excited to see the final bout of pro players. As they all get settled, the star of the show appears, the MVP of both the 6th and 7th World Champions. It's Lee Tae-ho, or at least that's what they used to call him. The barbarians now circling Lee note that his name is quite unusual, and he also wears strange clothes, as well as being extremely small. The two making most of these remarks seem to recognize each other. The bald one calls the other a brute, as he's the one who killed him. The red-haired man laughs, and it seems that they are about to throw down, something Lee can barely understand, but he gets that he should get out of their way before things get extremely bad for him. Suddenly, however, they lock hands, with the red-haired one glad to see that he actually sent him to Valhalla. The bald one notes that it was indeed a fine battle, but seeing him here means that he died right after, right? The red-haired man admits that he got done in by a kid with 5 braids. He shouted, "Father," as he was stabbing him in the stomach. The bald-haired man recognizes that guy. It's his son. What an honor. As they continue to compliment each other, Lee becomes a block of ice, wondering how he even wound up in this place. To find that out, we have to rewind a bit. He was just about to win the World Championship for the 3rd time in a row, but suddenly, he fell face first in the keyboard, and actually died right then. Out of all deaths, that's actually pretty mediocre, and he recognizes it as such too. As he damns this reality for not being a dream, a nearby woman, who seems to hold some reputation around here, explains that Lee is a champion, the one who won every single duel over dozens of battles. The nearby warriors cheer for him, calling him a duel king, and they all want to have a god at him. Lee just stares, and then remembers that it was this hag who brought him here. After rewinding one more time, after Lee's soul left his body, the guide descended upon him, and told him that since he lost his life after a glorious battle, his fate was to come with her. Lee asked where to. Was it hell, heaven, purgatory, or reincarnation? Before he could get his answer, the guide grabbed his hand and pulled him upwards. Finally responding to his dying question, he's going to Valhalla. That's how he got here, to the afterlife of the Norse mythology, a place you can go to only if you die as a warrior. Judging by her dumbass expression, it seems that she mistook him for a great warrior. So he explains that he is no such thing. He's a gamer, a person who plays games. She takes this to mean battles, or duels, which he can't completely deny. So he relents, and asks to be taken back. Before she can do anything though, a horn blows in the wind, the mark of an enemy attack. The warriors scream and shout with joy, and charge in on the oncoming horde, which seems to be filled with hungry gnolls. The warriors immediately begin fighting the hungry beasts. All the while Lee watches, thinking that this is pure madness. What is he supposed to do here? Even if he has a blade, he never actually wielded one. That's when a thought runs through his head. If he already died once, what will happen were he to die again? As if to answer his question, a gnoll appears and swings his large sword at him, but suddenly, an imposing voice tells him to duck, and Lee immediately does, allowing the buff man to hit the gnoll and send him flying, as he was using an ability. The brave man asks if he does not know about sagas, smiling as he does, and clearly, Lee does not. The brave man explains that coming to Valhalla means that someone accomplished something widely known in their lifetime. Here, those accomplishments become strength, and the more renowned he was, the stronger his saga would be. Lee thinks about his achievements, and thinks, but all he did was eat so he doesn't die and just play video games 24/7. That's when he thinks of his game character. What if it can also be his achievements? The achievements of the immortal warrior Kalstead. As he thinks of him, Lee powers up with a mystical power, which surprises him, but not in a bad way. The brave man is glad that he actually possesses a saga. Right now, he should see the letters of light in front of him. He does not know these letters, but can understand them. It's like an image translator. He gets into position as the brave man stares at him, Lee thinking that the title of immortal warrior belonged to Kalstead. If he can use his power, then maybe he's the strongest in the world. Seeing that he's obviously enjoying his new power, the brave man tells him to focus on the battle, as another gnoll is descending upon him. Said gnoll crashes down his hammer toward Lee, forcing him to fall back and roll a bit before finally landing on his legs. This makes Lee think that Kalstead would easily one-shot this trash mod. So what gives? Is there a problem with the saga? He adjusts his glasses as he sees something below his title, a fine print, saying that his synchronization is only 1%. Lee is extremely angry that they wrote it so small. What is this? A damn insurance policy. The brave man finds him quite amusing and tells him that this is as much as he can help him know, but it's not the end of his saga. He should keep crafting his own story along with it, as that is the only way a warrior can grow. He also introduces himself as Bjorn as he leaves. If he survives, they will surely meet again. Lee heard him, but didn't respond, because the situation he is now in takes precedence. He only has 1% of Kalstead power, but even if 1%, it's more than enough. He rushes towards his blade and manages to grab it, believing in the power of Kalstead, the man who faced hundreds of soldiers alone. As the Knoll prepares another powerful strike, Lee imagines it, his own legend and Kalstead's. Just as the Knoll is about to hit him, he sidesteps behind him, thinking of the cheers of the audience, and about Kalstead, who was sweeping every enemy. His eyes light up with confidence and determination, and he manages to use his saga, the charge of a true warrior. After unleashing the ability, he can barely stop himself, falling on his ass in the middle of the battle. But it seems the Knoll he was attacking was actually dealt with. Lee understands now. Recalling an old achievement adds a new saga. The ability he just unleashed was just a speed buff, but it's enough for him to survive, at least for now. After the battle, everyone retreats to the dinner hall. The two enemies, now friends, seem to have survived, along with Lee, who is quite annoyed that the only thing they have to eat and drink are meat and alcohol, which he's only partaking in because he's hungry, not because of the taste, even if he is technically dead. Bjorn suddenly sits down opposite to him with a thud, and seeing his displeased face, tells him that if he wishes for better meals, he will have to raise his warrior class. This is the lowest banquet, where the lowest class warriors and newcomers gather, which is why the meal is mediocre to say the least. Lee asks if he's a low-class warrior, making Bjorn laugh, as he only came down to see him for a bit. Lee thanks him for telling him about the sagas. If it wasn't for him, he certainly would have died. That's when that question pops up in his mind again, and he says it out loud. What happens if they die here? Bjorn explains that those who die here are transferred into the Warriors of Steel. They do not feel pain or hunger, and can just fight forever. A wonderful way to experience true battle. Lee thinks it's not at all wonderful. That's basically a steel coffin, forcing him to keep going even though he's dead. Whatever happens, he knows that he can't die. Absolutely not die. Bjorn distracts him from the doom and gloom by telling him that his affiliation will be determined soon, which Lee asks about, as it's the first time he heard of it. Bjorn tells him that it's just about to begin, pointing at a woman who enters the hall. She has seen all of their feats today, and now she will tell them which legion they will belong to forevermore. Lee thinks that this must be a Valkyrie, and Bjorn introduces her as the daughter of Odin, Regenlife, born of the noblest blood. She orders everyone to look into their cups. They will see the names of those whom they will trust and follow from now on. Bjorn further explains that they all belong to the Legion of the Gods of Asgard. Long name, sure, but he will gain even greater power from the god that chooses him. Lee only knows of Odin and Thor, and that's only because of a certain god of war. But if he can get power at least, he wants a powerful god, so he can survive better. After the event, which was basically the hat sorting, Lee seems to be taking a nice stroll on a river with a red-haired woman, thinking that this was supposed to be a legion of the gods. So why is he the only one here? The woman thinks that he's been like this the entire time, and tells him not to worry. Their legion has strong points too, like nobody nagging him from above, and nobody to bicker with from below. It's like paradise, right? Lee thought she was joking, but is he really the only one in Idun's legion? As soon as they got their answers in their cups, everyone cheered, as some went to Thor, some to Tyr, and so on, all reputable names. But Lee didn't recognize his. He looked up at Bjorn, who had a defeated and solemn look, and even told him to be strong. After that, they all went to get sorted, with Valkyries calling out each legion. Lee looks around for Idun, as he hadn't heard anybody call it, but that's when he heard a whisper about it, from a Valkyrie that seemed more interested in cleaning her ear than being here. Lee slowly approached and said that he's in Idun's legion, which made the Valkyrie jump up in joy, completely dumbfounded that they had a newcomer. Lee held his breath in as she approached him, seemingly because he didn't want to raise a tent in front of her. At that moment, she introduced herself as Heda, and now, Lee asks what exactly they are fighting, and why they are even at war. Heda puts her hand up and says that she will explain, before materializing a map of the world in front of him. They are right there in the middle, in Asgard, and below the depths lies Muspelheim. From there, giants, evil gods, and beasts are constantly invading. Lee is curious about the red part between them, which Heda calls Eren. It's already fallen, and now they are the front line. They are at war with enemies that basically want to destroy the entire world. Lee then thinks of something once again, thanks to a certain god of war. Is this event called Ragnarok? Heda is surprised he knows, and confirms as such. They are a part of Ragnarok, the battle for the fate of the world. More grandly, they are saving the world, but honestly, they are just fighting to survive. Lee guesses from this that it's possible to travel between different worlds. Does that mean that perhaps he can return to the world he originally came from? Eventually, after rowing through a damp cave, they arrive at the Temple of Idun. Since they are her only warriors, Heda suggests they go pay their respects. Lee is taken aback by the masonry of this place, and asks if they are really going to see a goddess here. Heda explains that not directly, more at a distance, as the goddess resides in a higher plane than them. To contact her, Haida gives Lee a golden apple, telling him to drop it on the ground. Lee does as he is told, and suddenly a bright light envelops him, warm and comforting, as Idun appears, the goddess of life and youth, who beckons Lee to come closer. Lee is completely mesmerized, and something in his heart makes him immediately bow, as an instinct that was asleep has just been awoken. She holds her hand over him and bestows her blessings upon him, shielding his body from the perils of death. As soon as Lee gets blessed, he gains the power of his youth back, his chronic back pain, his carpal tunnel from being a pro gamer, his neck stiffness, indigestion, it's all been cured. Idun can't help but smile and note that she's looking forward to his future contributions. After that, Lee wakes up, Haida feeling that he has received the blessing of their god, as she explains that Idun is the goddess of life, and on the battlefield, even if he is to feel extreme pain, it's impossible to die thanks to her blessing. Lee just looks up at her, as he's never seen a woman on top before, but he gets up, with Haida noting that as he grows stronger, so will his blessing, which is why they are called the Zombie Legion. Lee thinks a bit and asks, if they manage to defeat all of their enemies, will he be able to return to the world he lived in? As he looks at her with determination, he thinks that he was kind of cool just now. Surely any maiden would be smitten with him. Haida can basically read his mind due to his expression, but finds him innocent and pretty cute. Haida offers him a helping hand, noting that if the war ends, and if they win, he can return, if he wishes to, that is. Lee thinks he has to go back. He has no joy in staying in such a brutal place. Upon touching Haida's hand though, he rethinks his choice. Maybe for now, there might be some enjoyment while he's here. Later, in Lee's mind, he sees a new future, one where he comes late from work, and Haida is waiting for him with dinner prepared. She prepared tender brisket this time, and she's even feeding him. What more could a man ask for? Suddenly though, he's taken back to reality by the meat he's currently eating, far from the tender brisket. It has the consistency of a shoe, and that's why it snapped him from his delusion. Haida notices he's struggling with it, and says that they should work hard and raise their class, as they can get better meals. He will also get treated better if he does, so they should both hang in there. Seeing her smile, Lee immediately begins thinking of another future with her, and not even the saga system can calculate the level of delusion he's at now. After eating, they go to the training era, where Haida sums up the system they're working around. Every time he defeats an enemy, he gains something called a rune, which Lee guesses, as he felt something red being absorbed in his body after killing the gnoll, and it's probably used as currency for abilities, right? Haida confirms as much, but Lee is more confused about the stats. Stamina and agility are what it says on the tin, but what about mana and willpower? Haida explains that mana strengthens his magic and magic defense, while willpower enhances concentration and mental fortitude. Lee would like to know more, but accepts this somewhat crude explanation, and asks if sagas can be strengthened by mana. Haida notes that sagas are special, so simply increasing stats won't work. The more people who know his story, and the stronger his belief, the more powerful the saga becomes. Sometimes, a saga can become even stronger than the reality of the situation, like how a story about capturing a sizable snake becomes a legend about slaying a legendary dragon. The sagas of low-class warriors are usually simple, mostly involving getting stronger. That in and of itself is amazing too, but alas, still falls short of being a true saga. They are realizations of legends, so their effects can really range in uniqueness. Some can create weapons, transform, or even summon armies. He should remember one thing though. The power to invoke a saga and develop it is entirely up to him. Lee knows what she's talking about. His story, Kalsted's, the Dragon Knight's legend. Suddenly a bell tolls, signaling that it's time to battle. Haida hopes that he got most of it, as it's time for him to fight again, which Lee didn't expect. He hoped at least that he would get more respite. A portal begins appearing in front of them, with Haida explaining that when he passes through, he will find himself in the deployment area, where everyone gathered before heading to the battlefield. Before Lee enters though, he gets dressed in his appropriate attire, with Haida making sure he looks alright, despite him almost passing out from holding his breath. After she's done, he immediately makes his way through the portal, but Haida leaves him with one last message, to not die. Lee becomes smitten, but steels himself, as she said herself. Thanks to Idun's blessing, dying is impossible. With that, he makes his way through the portal, arriving at a place filled with warriors, waiting to be called. As Lee wonders if this is a major battle because of how many warriors there are, he gets slapped in the back by none other than Bjorn, who is very glad to see him again. He notes that he has a certain gleam in his eye now. Does his Valkyrie look like a jade beauty, perhaps? Bjorn can't help but laugh at his reaction, as all Valkyries are beautiful. It's only natural he feels that way, but he should hurry and find his legion. Today's battle will have a commander, unlike yesterday. As Lee aligns himself with the others under the guise of his rather serious commander, the commander asks if he's Idun's warrior. He must be tough, and oddly, he's sticking out alone like this, so he should go and stand in the back. Lee just accepts it, not really wanting to stand out anyway. The commander begins screaming, introducing himself as Ragnar of the Heimdall Legion. He will be leading today's battle. The objective of this battle is to recover the territory lost by the gnolls, so they will deploy right into the battlefield. The portals all open, and the warriors cheer, ready to give their lives to protect Asgard and the Nine Realms. Ragnar tells his crew that he will always lead from the front. They will just have to follow him. The others cheer, but Lee can't really see anything due to their sizable figures, so he takes it that they are going. Some warriors are already fighting in the white tundra, and are glad to see that they are finally getting reinforcements. Just as they feel a burst of confidence, though, a mighty gnoll appears above them, and immediately crashes down on them with sheer fury. This is the boss of the gnolls, White Fang. The warriors are stunned, to the point where they all stop moving, thinking that he's 6, maybe 7 times bigger than normal gnolls. Suddenly, though, Ragnar and his team appear behind the boss, screaming and shouting about glory, something which White Fang doesn't seem to like. The only thing they can do now is stare as he unleashes his hammer, sending them flying in all directions, except Lee, who came last. White Fang roars at him, almost making his heart skip a beat. But Lee is more focused on the person who placed the portal here, as he wants to have a very friendly chat with them. Never mind that, though. As the legendary fight between White Fang and Lee begins, he calms himself down, thinking of the beast in front of him as an in-game boss, even if he is as real as anything. For now, though, he will just focus on that gigantic warhammer, which must weigh like 40,000 pounds. He knows that there is no way for him to block a strike from it, not with such a small shield. He decides to throw it away and use all the runes for agility, so that he can move swiftly. With this, as White Fang swings his warhammer at him, he can see its movement and can dodge it. The warriors are impressed by this display, but White Fang throws them away, swinging his axe around like a maniac for Lee, who is running amongst the other warriors. Lee knows that he can't just do this forever. Maybe he should try attacking the legs, since it's the only place he can reach easily. One of the warrior leaders gets the same idea, ordering everyone to strike at the legs, but they get blasted back to the lobby, making Lee think that he should try something else. Since White Fang is descending on him as he speaks, the only thing that comes to his mind now is the warrior's charge, another game ability. It seems to work, thrusting him upwards, dodging White Fang's mighty strike. At that moment, Lee made a promise to himself to survive this battlefield no matter what and see Hida again. He also remembered her advice, that it's up to him to get stronger and how he gets stronger. And then, for the last time, suddenly, Lee screams at us for reading his life story, as it's a major death flag. Sorry, bro. Lee thinks that the warrior's charge was a speed boost before, but now he can level it up beyond the vertical jumps. He uses it again to kick the air itself, thrusting him downward at blinding speeds. White Fang unable to react in time, allowing Lee to actually lodge his blade into his eye. Due to the high speeds, he couldn't stop himself though, so he crashed down like Yamcha. But still lives, probably thanks to Idun's blessing. He gets up and looks at White Fang. He knows that this is his only chance to finish the bastard, and right now, what he needs more than anything is a weapon. As he thinks off that, the warrior's blade appears in his waiting hand, and he charges in, proving himself as a true warrior. One of the major Valkyries, Razgrid, seems to notice Lee taking care of the boss and moves a piece on a board. She reports to Odin using his raven, but Odin notes that she's reporting to his raven, Hugin, and not him. She sighs, and Odin asks if someone caught her eye yet. She remains silent, prompting him to say that it's normal. These guys are low-ranked warriors in the first place. Nothing special about them, not like they were expecting anything. Razgrid was just thinking though, as she did find someone interesting, someone who acted as the others watched. The warriors cheer for Lee, giving glory to him and their goods. Lee gets up, feeling the thundering of the warriors, shouts in his very soul. It feels similar to the cheers he got when he proved himself in his world. This blade is also familiar to him. It used to be a super rare weapon, but later became just a common weapon. So this is his current level, huh? His determination is speaking through him. He wants to keep hearing those cheers and get even stronger, become the strongest in all the realms. Bjorn snaps him out of his epic moment and congratulates him on his achievement. It also seems like he leveled up using his saga, as summoning a sword from thin air, something else. Lee notes that this is pretty new to him too. It seems he can create and dismiss it at will too, which is useful, if anything. Bjorn notes that it's time they get moving. Lee thinks that they will be heading back now, but Bjorn says otherwise. Their mission is to take back the fortress, so until then, they are going to stay posted here and sleep here too. Just as he said, they make camp, using tents to shield themselves from the cold. Lee retreats into his own tent, tired from all the fighting that he did today. Now that he thinks about it, how much stronger did he get there? He opens up his saga and sees that he upped his synchronization, while also getting a new saga slot. It appears that he can use 2 sagas now, which is probably extremely useful. His thoughts got interrupted though, as one of the warriors opens his tent and notes that he has a visitor while smirking, which confuses Lee, as he's too cheery. As he gets out of the tent, the other warriors look at him with smiles on their faces, some even cheering him on. This confuses Lee even further. Why are they all staring at him? As soon as he gets to the local fireplace though, he understands that Hida has come to visit him in this cold place. When Hida gets to Lee's tent, she immediately apologizes. As 5 minutes earlier, she announced her reason for visiting. She forgot to mention that she can show everyone her accomplishments in life, which Lee is surprised she can do it. Hida does it for him as an example, but upon looking at all his achievements, which are too many to count, she's shocked. That is why she's apologizing now. She did not know she was in the presence of such greatness. She was arrogant, and even called him a beginner. She deserves punishment. Lee tells her to calm down, but finds her quite cute even when flustered, although he would like to explain what is actually happening. He does so, telling her it's all in a game. He did those things, true, but in a virtual world, made up of 1s and 0s, maybe 6 or 7s too. Hida kinda gets it, but not really, not having seen a computer in her entire life. But still, he did do those things all by himself, and she thinks that's impressive on its own. Lee's eyes light up at her kind words. In the past, people told him that esports wasn't a real sport and that he was just wasting his time. But now, he's getting actual recognition. In the afterlife, no less. Hida changes the subject. Still on the topic of sagas, as there is no limit to how many sagas he can have. From what she can see at his current level though, once he creates another saga, he won't be able to do so for a while, so he should think carefully before creating something random. Lee opens up his sagas, thinking about what exactly he should get next. If he were to summarize his current sagas, they are all things related to Karlstad, but only buffs, so he could really use an attack skill. However, he remembers one thing, the dragon's eyes that see through all. The all-seeing dragon eye. He materializes them in this world, making an expression that even Hida is creeped out by. But she guesses that he decided right. Lee confirms that this saga is an ability to see things like he would in the game, basically see every detail about everyone. Unfortunately for him, or fortunately, the heavens have blessed his ability with more than just seeing stats. He can see through clothes too, and what he sees makes his head explode in a pink haze, shocking Hida. After bandaging him up, she asks if he's fine, as his head seems to have exploded. Lee confirms he's all right, but he almost died though. He saw too much for a mortal man like he is. Hida notes that it's about time for her to head out, but now that she understands how amazing he truly is, he's going to get ridiculously strong. She hugs him, seeing him as the lucky charm of their legion, but the physical contact, along with what he saw earlier, makes Lee explode once again, both inside and outside. Shortly after Hida leaves, a green-haired man approaches Lee's tent and asks if he's available. Lee, who has now protected himself from further contact with the opposite sex in a moment of clarity, asks what's going on. The green-haired man introduces himself as Rolf, someone from Uller's Legion. A warrior from the Ciri division is joining the Ragnall division, and since everyone is gathering at their division base, he's here to fetch him. Lee decides to analyze him, seeing that he has the Wolf Hunter nickname, but he also sees something he really didn't want to see, his solid snake. He turns the X-ray vision off, vowing to keep it off unless he desperately needs it. They both go outside, the sky green with beauty, and Rolf notes that he's quite jealous of him. To have a Valkyrie visit him, he's also beyond impressed, as that seems really cool. Lee guesses that it's like a celebrity stopping by to see him. It seems that being from Iden's Legion isn't that bad. Lee also asks Rolf what the blessing of Uller's Legion is. He explains that it's invisibility and tracking. Only one unlocks at the start, and the other, later down the line. He chose invisibility, for instance, something which Lee thinks is very cool. Rolf goes further, noting that tracking is quite literally the ability to follow the tracks of a target. Even the tiniest trace would be good enough to start tracking. After they arrive in the middle, Rolf tells the captain that he brought Lee, who is shocked to see that the captain is a woman. This is his first time seeing a woman here that's not a Valkyrie, so he sheepishly introduces himself. She knows of him. He's the one who took down that sizable knoll. It's nice to meet him. Lee suddenly feels an overwhelming aura from her, an aura bigger than any of the warriors he has met before. She tells him that the head commander will be here soon, so he should wait with them. Lee immediately gets into line and agrees, especially since she has the human hunter tag. Eventually, Razgrid arrives, which Lee thinks looks pretty amazing. He already knows who he is, but why does she have the Ice Princess nickname? She introduces herself and notes that she's the chief commander of this battlefield. As they know, Ragnall has fallen in battle, almost immediately, so the Ragnall division has been merged with Ciri's division. She commands Ciri to take good care of them, which she vows to do, and with this section done, Razgrid pulls out a scroll, noting that she has seen their achievements, and they will be given rewards based on their contributions. First, she calls forward Lee. He took down a large gnoll, the leader of their division, single-handedly. As a reward, he will be granted a bag of gold coins and 1 rune, along with 10 contribution points for his legion. Lee would want to smile, but he can't yet, even though he would like to, because he's getting famous. Lee thinks his biggest achievement is taking down the gnoll, but the warriors think otherwise, as they only see him as the guy who got a Valkyrie visit, a much more impressive achievement in their eyes. He does not get why, leaving him confused, and Razgrid tells them to settle down, as starting from tomorrow afternoon, they will begin the fortress takeover. They will be using the Iron Rain tactic, and the warriors here will be the ones on board. They all cheer after hearing this, but Lee has no clue what that may be. He asks Rolf, who is also cheering, but he has no idea either. He's cheering because everyone else is doing so. The next day, Razgrid is at the forefront of the advance, and at her command, the mighty warriors charge forth, ready to unleash hell on the gnolls from below, as well as from above. Another boss of the gnolls, the Red Eye, growls at this affront of his keep, and almost as if the gnolls are feeling his anger, they charge forth, refusing to let the attacking forces advance. Ciri made a plan before this. When the siege began, and the enemy's attention was on that side, one unit would scale the fortress wall and open the gate. To do so, they needed to reach a place called the Rune Magic Control Room. Rolf guessed that they would go over the wall using the Iron Rain, acting like he knew what he was, but Lee was most curious about what it could actually be, some kind of teleportation magic. Now that he's strapped in a gigantic barrel with 4 other warriors, he's both shocked and kind of disappointed. Rolf is quite excited, and another guy screams that he's going to Valhalla, even though they are in it. They get the okay to launch, so the barrel closes, leaving Lee completely in the dark, something he does not like very much. The cannon gets in position and shoots the filled barrel out, each individual inside it having a different and rather unique experience. The sky becomes filled with flying barrels, and they all eventually land squarely in the middle of the keep. Judging from the faces of those who came outside of them, it wasn't a pleasant experience in the slightest. Lee was more surprised than ever that he didn't die. Ciri, who seems to be the only one not bothered by the experience, tells them to prepare for battle, as the enemy is coming. Sure enough, out of the ground, hordes of giant bugs pop out, to the point where the entire team is encircled. Rolf explains that giant bugs move in groups of 5, and if they take down their leader, the others will scatter without purpose. The problem is, they all look the same, so they have to rely on luck. Instead of doing that though, Lee uses his saga and can see which one is the actual leader. He tells everyone as such, and suddenly, Ciri rushes towards him, pushing herself into him and telling him to point. Lee, naturally flustered, asks what she means, and she explains that she wants him to point at the leaders while the others keep attacking. Lee locks in for a second and begins pointing them out one by one, Ciri easily shooting them down with his help. Due to having no leaders, the ones that were attacking have no purpose and are easily taken down. After the last leader falls, the bugs just kind of look at each other and leave, not having any reason to stay here. The party's not over yet, however, as a gnoll signals the charge of his brothers, who are nearing them as they speak. Ciri tells Rolf to assemble a separate unit and go towards the control room, as they will be cleaning up here. He should also take Lee, as he is a reliable warrior of Idun. Hearing this, Lee gives her a determined look, and the separate unit is formed. Rolf grabs Lee's shoulder and tells him to stay close, as they activate their stealth movement, allowing them to move away from the ferocious battle near them. They reach a wall, but Rolf knows that there is a hidden door around here, so he feels around the wall before opening the passage. This is connected to the control room basically, an emergency passage. As they make their way through the unlit passage, Lee seems to be having some trouble with the spider webs around here. This signals that it's not been used for a long time, at least that's what he thinks, but the inhabitants are watching their every move with great anticipation. Rolf tells everyone to watch their steps, as they do not know what might be lurking here, and Lee agrees. The avatar-looking dude agrees too, but in that instant, unnamed Soldier A gets gobbled up by a wolf spider, which they all notice. Unfortunately, it's too late to save their comrade, as the beast is already digesting him. Lee uses his ability and sees that there's more than one. There's an entire legion of spiders, hungry for their flesh. Lee calms himself down, thinking of what their weakness might be. His ability tells him, and of course, it's flames. Lee summons his blade, shocking Rolf in the process, and throws it into the horde of spiders before activating its effect, which creates a large fiery explosion. As that happens, Lee runs away, advising them to do the same while they still have the chance. The avatar dude asks if he's just going to leave his sword, and Rolf asks if he's a mage, and Lee responds to the first question. he can always make another one. He guides them throughout the dark halls using his saga, and eventually they get to a door. If they get behind it, they should be safe. They do just that, with the Avatar dude barely making it inside before a spider does, who was just kind of running with them, unaware of what they were running from. Lee immediately puts it down and screams at the others to close the gate, which they are barely able to do. After they all take a deep breath, having just danced with death, they look at the control mechanism in the middle. Rolf notes that this is an emergency control room. It's the second hidden control room of the fortress. Lee now understands why the path to this place was so tough, and since it's hidden, there weren't any guards present. Rolf says that they should hurry. They must open the fort gate quickly, so they can minimize casualties. The authorization key he has works, and with a surge of light, a visage of a woman appears, identifying herself as Black Fortress, and wishing to hear their command. The other two are smitten, but Lee wonders if they weren't in a hurry like 5 seconds ago. Rolf locks in and demands she open the gate, and she begins doing just that, opening the gate behind them, and Rolf immediately screams at her to close it and open the fortress gate. After another encounter with death, Ralph notes that they accomplished their mission. Now they just need to defend the place until their forces capture the fortress. Since they have time, it's time to talk about some important stuff, their tastes in women. Before they can engage in such philosophical matters though, Black Fortress says that an intruder is approaching the control room, and he doesn't just approach, he kicks the gate open. Lee is shocked to see that he did that to a thick iron door, and Rolf is worried about the spiders outside. But there's no need to, as they've been taken care of. The one who did it is none other than Red Eye, who screams out with his thundering voice, vowing to rip them into shreds. Lee knows this situation is dangerous, and his thoughts remain on Haida as they all charge in. But this is not a mid-tier boss though. He swirls around with his mallet, hitting the Avatar squarely, making him land on a wall. He then tries to focus his attention on Lee, but can't find him, as he is above, and launches himself downwards for a strike. As he does that though, Red Eye notices his presence and drops the mallet, catching him with both hands, before jumping up and throwing him into a piledriver position, attempting to take his life and masculinity away at once. Rolf screams for Lee, as he has suffered a critical blow. Lee is fading away. He feels a warm sensation, and a white light envelops him, as a Red Eye is about to crush him. Thinking on it a little though, he doesn't really want to die right now. Rolf immediately uses his saga, launching a fiery projectile right into Red Eye, while telling the other two to get themselves together, or they won't make it out of here. Red Eye is naturally annoyed at Rolf, as nobody dares to annoy him. At that moment though, he hesitated. Which one should he kill first? The archer who is pestering him, or this guy who's basically crushed already? Noticing this, Lee pulled out his special move, acting like he had been dead for weeks. Red Eye really doesn't like that, and decides to go for the archer. He will be the first to die. Rolf has to do something, even if he's probably going to die. He won't go out while lying still. Lee can move now, but everything hurts, to the point where it feels like he's going to die. However, he hasn't yet, so he uses his dash and goes right between Red Eye's legs, into his solid snake. Unfortunately, it seems that he has cut it in half, making Red Eye fall on the ground while clutching his pearls, screaming as he does so. Lee's companions are kind of shocked by this, and Rolf suggests he finish him off quickly. It's the least they can do at this point. As Red Eye cries, Lee approaches and apologizes, as he knows, as a fellow male, that this was a low blow. As he summons his word though, he actually summons a giant hammer, the Skull Buster. Using it, he puts an end to Red Eye's pain. Lee focuses on his synchronization though, as it's gone up to 7%. As he does that though, the others jump on him. The last blow of the Knolls was dealt as Frostman was killed by one of Thor's warriors, Brachi, who is cheered at for his achievement. However, Thor knows that Razgrid is not interested in him, but in that other fellow, Lee. That night they celebrate, as they have all earned a little respite. Lee backs away from the entire ordeal, clearing his mind as he sits alone, but he gets interrupted by Rolf, who asks if his body is fine. Lee still feels like an absolute dog water, but Rolf notes that he's lucky to live. When he got a pile drive into the ground, he thought it was over for him. Suddenly someone else wishes to join them. It's Ciri, who notes that their contributions were substantial and very important, and so she would like to drink with them. Rolf feels that this is an honor, as he always wanted to drink with her. But then, everyone jumps in too, so Ciri cheers with them all, despite Rolf's anger and Lee not caring at all. As the event proceeds, Rolf explains what happened and what Lee did, and while doing so, he sees Ciri laughing. It seems like she can change expressions too. That's certainly a surprise. A while later, the festivities continue. Warriors slapping their bellies into one another, and DJs ripping it up till daylight. Lee, who is not someone who likes to stay up late, asks when this torment will end. One drunk man wants to show Lee something, and fearing what that might be, they jump him. as they don't want their star warrior to be traumatized. Razgrid arrives, calling out Lee's name, making everyone look in her direction. She announces that he has a visitor, who is Hida, making everyone cheer for them, as Lee tells them they should go inside quickly. The warriors still cheer, wishing they had that type of youth again. But never mind that, they should keep the festivities going. Razgrid says otherwise, as they have a special mission tomorrow, so they will all get some sleep. The next day arrives, and Lee comes out with a yawn, the others immediately questioning him on what he did with Hida. But Lee has to keep it a secret, not because they actually did something, but because of the new pendant he has now. Ciri tells them to listen up. From now on, they have a special mission to carry out. Their target is located east of the Black Fortress. It's the dwarf mine. When the gnolls seized the fortress, the dwarves sealed the mine and holed up inside, but there's been no word of them since. Their mission is to go there directly and check the situation for themselves. Lee knows dwarves and guesses they look atypical, but Rolf notes that's kind of racist. Dwarves do go ballistic for beer though, so he might actually get a drink after a while of not having one, even though he drank yesterday as well. He also explains that the dwarfs are the manliest of the races. Even their women have beards, and Lee doesn't know how to feel about that, but Ciri tells them to shut it, as she hasn't finished yet. It's quite a way to the dwarf mine, so to minimize the time they travel in as much as possible, they will, unfortunately, be using the Black Lightning. Everyone is shocked to hear about it, even Rolf, but once again, he has no clue as to what it might be. He's just reacting, as per usual. The other night, Hida told Lee to keep everything she was about to tell him a secret, as she has something to give him. Lee's heart almost gave out as she saw her put her hair back, but then she gave him the golden apple necklace. Wearing it will increase his recovery speed by a sizable margin, and she also gave him fragments from the golden apple, which have amazing healing effects, all the way to Eve beauty treatments. Lastly, she kissed him on the forehead to renew his blessing, something which he remembers dearly now, as he's trying to dig himself out of the snow. The Black Lightning seems to be using actual coffins, and Lee manages to get out of his, surprised to be alive. He was not expecting anything normal, but he never thought they would just launch them in coffins, and apparently, neither did anyone else. He seems to be mostly fine thanks to the necklace, but a few moments later, they all get out and ready at the gates of the mine, which has its doors wide open, where they are perhaps duped. Ciri notes that they should go inside, and they do just that, someone noting that it's extremely dark in here, but that's because the dwarves do not like sunlight. There's even a rumor that they would turn to stone if they went out. As the warriors spread rumors to each other, Ciri makes their presence known, explaining that Razgrid sent them as aid. Lee uses his saga to see that there are tons of dwarves here, but something is wrong, as their eyes are red and filled with rage. Ciri immediately gives out the order to form shield walls, and the warriors do just that, right before they are barraged with tons of arrows. They seem to be having some difficulties actually keeping the walls together, but they do manage to get through it all, and Ciri asks Lee if he can identify the enemies through the gaps. Lee does as he is told, and sees that it's actually dwarf zombies, shocking Rolf, but Lee knows that only means one thing. All of the dwarfs are long gone. Rolf asks if he's sure, and Lee is, because even with different names, they are all still zombies. They get prepared to shoot again, signaling Ciri to give out the shield order again, but one of the warriors notes that they can't, not with the shields in this condition. They are barely able to be used as firewood as is. As they are about to get battered by arrows, someone runs in, seemingly a dwarf, and throws a flashbang right in front of them, before telling them to close their eyes. With this large, blinding explosion, the zombies are all temporarily blinded, and the squad can make their way to the alive dwarf, who guides them through a hatch. Rolf goes first but gets stuck, so the dwarf just pushes him down. After everyone is safe, they find themselves in the real underground of the place, which is stunningly beautiful with different types of ores spread along the walls. They all huddle together, and the dwarf explains that it's the work of a vampire. It suddenly appeared yesterday at the crack of dawn, and did all of this in just a day. If one is bitten and killed by it, they become a ghoul through its curse. And if a ghoul bites a healthy person, that person becomes a ghoul too. The 20 dwarves they see here, including him, are all that is left. Ciri asks if it has any distinctive features, and so the dwarf explains that it was bigger than a human and had gray skin. It was bald with pitch black eyes, and its nails kept extending, preferring to use physical attacks rather than magic. Ciri speaks to the dwarf, calling him Isaac, noting that if he seeks revenge, it's better to postpone it, as they should regroup and come back at a later date, when they are better prepared. He refuses, along with the other dwarfs. They all agree this should be done now. It's something more important than revenge. As recently, in this very mine, an unt was discovered. The warriors are shocked. They all now understand the gravity of the situation, but not really. Lee is getting really tired of them reacting, and then asking what that object is. Are their brains working in reverse, or what? It seems that some of the warriors know what it actually is. bragging about how shocked they were when they heard about it, and that this really is important. Rolf tells them to spill the tea already. What could be so important? UNT is often called the metal of the gods. It's the hardest material in the world, and it amplifies the power of runes as well. Even Mjolnir is made from it. Since they cannot let such an ore get into enemy hands, they must deal with it at once. Isaac stops them at another underground keep, noting that on the top floor is the sacred anvil, and that's where the UNT is, so he guesses the vampires are there as well. UNT can only be refined by starlight and moonlight, prompting Lee to ask how they obtain that, given that they are underground. Isaac explains that the top of that tower is connected to the surface, and the ceiling can be opened. Lee thinks of this as vital information. Since it's around noon now, the vampire should be weakened by sunlight. They open the gates and make a harsh but frontal assault on the undead dwarves, who seem to be enjoying themselves a bit. Never mind that though, they begin fighting each other, in a battle of unstoppable forces and impenetrable walls. Ciri puts the vanguards in the front, and then the Wharf warriors come into play, using their mighty skills to eradicate their undead brothers. With this strategy, they push forward again and again, with Isaac using his tools to make sure they all get to the top safely, even if these were once his comrades. Eventually, they get there, and as they open the door, they see the Unt right on the anvil, but no vampire. Lee points to the ceiling, and there he is, with the archers getting ready to hit him. Lee compares it to a knoll. It's obviously much smaller, but something ominous is emanating from it. He uses his saga and finds out he's a Strigoi. The archers point their arrows at him, but at that moment they all get torn up, and the Strigoi stops at Lee. He wonders how they all got here, because honestly, he doesn't like people encroaching on his treasure. The Strigoi tells Lee not to move unless he wants to feel how it feels to have his head detached from his body. The same goes for his cronies. He has eyes in the back of his head after all. Ciri asks Rolf if he's okay, and he confirms that, along with everyone else who was hit, they are fine, but it will be tough to shoot their bows. He probably spared them on purpose. The Strigoi confirms as such. For capable warriors like them, it would be just a real waste to end them, and so, they shall be reborn as his powerful ghoul warriors. Lee imagines it, and thinks it would be better to just die at that point. But even if they do, they'll just end up as warriors of steel. Suddenly, a bolt flies towards the Strigoi with no warning, just a faint cutting of air. But he catches the bolt with ease, and asks if they really think they can resist him. Isaac looks at Ciri, the one who shot the bolt, and agrees that rather than becoming some monster's lapdog, they would be better off to die while fighting. He unleashes a torrent of flame from his cannon, making the Strigoi laugh, as their antics are extremely pathetic. He breaks through the wall of fire, and Ciri tells the others to form a shield wall and protect Isaac. They do just that, but the Strigoi smashes the ground below, sending them all flying backwards, incapacitating them for a short time. The dwarves unleash their whirlwind formation on him, but it seems to do nothing against the mighty Strigoi. In fact, he notes that it tickles. He just sits there, tanking all of it, and Lee hopes he does that for a little while longer, as he's just about to open the hatch above, revealing the sunlight. He does just that when the opportunity strikes, and daylight overwhelms the room, making the Strigoi burst in a purple flame and scream out in pain. Lee also breaks the lever, so that nobody can close it again. The Strigoi falls to his knees, and they all circle him, wondering what they should do now. Rolf is more curious to know if Lee knows how to kill a vampire, who thinks on it a bit, and guesses that they can start by striking his heart with a stake, or maybe just wait, as it will be dying on its own. That's when he notices something though. The Strigoi is chanting some kind of spell, which seems to be calling storm clouds above them. They all raise their weapons to finish it quickly, but just as their weapons land, the Strigoi transforms into a bunch of smaller bats and begins blocking the light above. His main form now is that of a Burgo, and he screams out at them, knowing that he can't let his guard down now, so he will make it so they don't even get a chance to touch him. Lee notices that he's about to do something, and he does, spewing black bile at them, with Lee telling everyone to move, as the ones who don't are completely rid of flesh, only the bones remaining from them. The Strigoi wonders how they dare to call themselves heroes when all they do is run away. The arena is becoming smaller and smaller. There are only a few places left where they can escape too, and knowing this, Lee decides to face him, as he can't let it end like this. He uses his charge ability to go after the Strigoi, who calls him foolish, as he spits out his acid right at him. But Lee uses his saga multiple times, and ends up right behind the Strigoi, who is surprised to see even the last one was an afterimage. Lee screams out as he strikes, but his blade snaps on the Strigoi's hide, shocking him. The Strigoi tells him it's quite unfortunate, but that kind of sword cannot pierce his skin. Due to the way he was positioned, Lee just kind of falls on the Strigoi's shoulders, who demands to know what he is doing, and so he explains, but the Strigoi tells him to get off right now. Lee understands, But how is he supposed to come down from this height? The Strigoi doesn't care, but seeing as he's in no position to bargain, he decides to put Lee down. Then they fight again. The Strigoi doesn't really care for their deal though. As soon as he gets close to the ground, he will smash him in it. Suddenly though, Lee begins to glow, as it seems that in this kind of awkward situation, a new saga has emerged. The Strigoi flaps his wing around, telling him to stop messing around, but Lee tells him to chill. He's trying to focus after all. The Strigoi calls him an insolent wretch, but that's when Lee understands his new saga. This is another of Castleted's abilities, the peak of flying creatures. From griffins to dragons, they are all Castleted's mounts. Using this saga, Lee transforms the terrifying Strigoi into a cute bat, and he gently goes down with him, while everyone else watches in awe. Lee eventually lands, and Rolf asks what they should do now. They all immediately go to pet it, but Riri has her doubts and stays behind. Seeing the Strigoi's cute little face through, she decides to pet it too. But this awakens something primal in the Strigoi, and he begins to resist Lee's command. How dare they, insolent whelps, dare to mock him like so? He will make sure to craft a throne from their gnawed bones and personally eat their flesh. They all prepare for battle, Lee knowing that the saga isn't complete enough. There seems to be a limit to how long he can control it. In that case, he mounts the Strigoi once again, and explains that he will inflict as much damage as possible on him, so they should combine their strength and take it down. The others agree, and Lee charges with the Strigoi right into the sky, where he takes the full brunt of the sun, before Lee redirects him directly downwards before jumping off himself, the Strigoi landing directly on his face. Lee isn't done yet, as he summons his mighty Skullbuster, crushing it down on the Strigoi. Somehow, though, it still lives, so Isaac tells him to get out of the way and throws his entire backpack at the Strigoi, causing a gigantic fiery explosion that sends Lee flying on his face. They throw everything they can into the fire, with Lee wondering who carries that much explosive in a backpack, and Rolf asks if the thing is dead now. Lee looks at his name, which is fading away, and guesses that it is so. After the deal is done, they all gather at the chest on the anvil, and Isaac shows them what they fought for, the Unt, which is incredibly small. Everyone feels kind of disappointed as they fought so much over such a small thing, but Isaac says they don't know what they are talking about. This ore is enough to craft a ring. He says this, despite saying that this would be enough to craft a Mjolnir at first. But never mind that now. Isaac closes the chest and gives it to them, as he will leave the honor of smelting it to the craftsmen of Valhalla. As they can clearly see, in their current situation, they don't have the time or means to protect and smelt it. Ciri understands. They will respect his decision and make sure to deliver it properly. With that done, Rolf asks if they can get to eating and drinking now, which Isaac agrees to. They'll give them all a barrel full of ale, each. They all cheer for the renowned dwarf bear, but Ciri refuses, as they do not have time for that. They must return promptly. Isaac says that it can't be helped, but they can't just let them go empty-handed, so they should all follow him, as he has something to give them. He guides them to a place of wonder, the legendary dwarf armory. They all cheer for the dwarvish masterpieces. Rolf even finds a toothpick somewhere, and somehow, Isaac tells Lee not to just stand there. He should pick something too, right? Lee agrees and decides to examine each item with his saga, where he can actually see their rarities. Out of all the greens, though, he finds a blue rare. After they all pick their weaponry, Isaac sincerely thanks all of them for avenging their brothers, and he is impressed that Lee has an eye for good gear. He picked the Hawk's wing garb, because this is the only blue item in the armory. He can tell it's both lightweight and durable, but does it have abilities? Isaac notes that the item has a chant to use. He will teach him. If things go south, he could even return to the fortress with it. The item's ability allows Lee to turn into a hawk, and he swirls around in the air, free as a bird, as they all go back to the Black Fortress. After getting back to the fortified fortress, they report what happened with Razgrid, about the Strigoi that has taken over the entire dwarf mine, and about them joining forces with the remaining dwarves to defeat him. In return, they got the Uent, which the dwarves entrusted to them. Razgrid notes that they have achieved something incredible. Congratulations are in order, and the fallen warriors will be reborn as warriors of steel. She will be taking care of their remains, so they should all go back and rest. As they do that, Rolf asks Lee if he would like to drink, but he wouldn't. He'd rather lie down. Ciri congratulates Lee specifically, as he contributed the most to this, but he denies it. Without everyone's help, he wouldn't have achieved what he did. Rolf invites him for a drink to celebrate, but he still refuses. As they walk to their chambers, Lee thinks of the Strigoi. He was really powerful, able to summon clouds, transforming. He was no joke, but thanks to that, he gained tons of runes by defeating him. His sync rate has jumped to 9, making him wonder and eager to know what will happen at 10%. Regenlife is on recon. She wonders if she came too far. Perhaps she should just go back now. Suddenly, though, she hears a large thud, and the mountains begin to shake, making her puzzled, as this is rather unusual. She wonders if she should go and identify it, but approaching it would be dangerous. So she transforms into a swan and begins to rush back, as she must report this as soon as possible. Razgrid is shocked to hear that an army is invading, and Regenlife is surprised she got here so fast. She even finished reporting. Razgrid knows that at this speed, the battle should begin by noon, or around that. She will request reinforcements immediately. Regenlife still doesn't remember reporting though. Was she flustered? Ciri reports to her men after she is briefed, telling them to rest early, as they will have a long day tomorrow, and alcohol is strictly prohibited, making Rolf and his drinking friend cringe. She can't see Lee though. Where did he go? Lee appears to have discovered an uninhabited section of the keep. He wants to make good use of this item, so he found a spot to practice until tomorrow's battle. The next morning, Ingrid, the Valkyrie of the Njord Legion, arrives, noting that she brought 500 low-class warriors, and asks if the enemy numbers have been identified. Regenlife notes that they are at least 6,000, and Razgrid notes that all rounded up, they make about 2,500. Unfortunately, they have no choice but to hold them as is, and Regenlife notes that in case of an emergency, she will activate the defensive magic she has. With that, they all get to work for Asgard and the 9 realms. The next day, they all get ready to face the enemy, with Breki from Thor's Legion being at the forefront of the assault. Ciri commands the Ula region, giving them orders to shoot for Asgard. Lee knows that he needs a long-range weapon, so he manifests a crossbow and charges in for Idun, but also for Hedda. The enemy is composed of multiple beasts, mostly gnolls, but also wyverns and mammoths. They immediately get assaulted by a flurry of flying arrows, making them pull their shields up and move forward, putting a bunch of grappling hooks on the walls, allowing them to easily climb them. However, the Asgard soldiers are prepared and pour scalding hot water on them. Others throw gigantic boulders, but this is not the only way the beasts can enter. One of the large mammoths charges into the wall, crashing through it, allowing the beasts to get in with ease. The fight continues. The warriors are all fighting with their lives on the line, but that's when the wyvern riders arrive, and using their wyverns, they spew fire on the warriors, adding even more chaos to the situation. Seeing this, Regenlife uses her shielding power, blocking the wyverns, but she screams out that this shield won't hold out for long, so they must eliminate all the wyverns in the sky. Lee knows that this is his opportunity, so he runs towards the edge of the keep. He's counting on his new item and on his experience with it. With his chant done, Lee swiftly transforms into a hawk, with nobody seemingly noticing him. This will allow him to show the results of the practice he did last night. He charges in swiftly on one of the riders, before transforming his legs back into those of a human and kicking the rider away. He takes the wyvern, transforming it into his companion, and summons his weapon, needing a spear, but all he gets is a bamboo spear. It's not really what he asked for, but it'll do for now. He charges in with his new wyvern companion, blasting fire on one other wyvern rider, before the others fully notice him and put all of their attention on him. Lee charges forth, as he can still use his saga while on the wyvern. He easily makes short work of them, the others from below chewing for him. And for Idun, even Regenlife is impressed, but that's when she notices something and warns him to look out, as something more is coming his way, and it seems to be a legion of harpies. Lee knows that there are too many to take care of for him alone, so he descends down towards the legion of warriors and calls out for Ciri, who immediately jumps up and takes his hand before prompting herself on the wyvern. Together, they move forward toward the harpies, and Ciri uses her saga, throwing a bunch of bolts at the harpies, who are now just sitting targets under her spell. The Valkyries are impressed with Lee's quick way of thinking. He's made great contributions to yet another battle. Unfortunately though, it's not over yet, as something dark falls from the sky, shaking the ground to the point that it throws people up. Lee and Ciri look at the landing site of the gigantic object, and after the smoke clears, they see that it's a huge black lightning. Something suddenly bursts free from it, something evil and extremely deadly. Their eyes widen as the giant Hagut, the warrior of Utgard Loki, descends upon the battlefield. The warriors see it too now, and wonder what the hell they are supposed to do against something like that. And he just stands there, waiting for something. Ciri notes that it's time to retreat and gives Lee the order to drop her near Rolf. Hagut raises his club high in the air as he prepares a strike, and Regenleaf stands below him, begging Odin for the sacred powers of the runes. Hagut descends his club down on the shield, making everyone jump up, and Regenleaf recoils in pain, even though she's still holding on. Hagut strikes again, creating a visible crack in the shield. The Valkyries, knowing that they have to restore the barrier, put up their hands too, with Regenleaf noting that at this rate, they can only withstand a couple of hits. They are not suited to face this enemy with only low-class warriors. If only they could use that power, the true, unbridled power of a Valkyrie. Razgrid screams out at Odin as Hagut unleashes another attack. She requests permission to use their real power, to unleash their combat seals. One of Odin's ravens looks at them, and he outright refuses. They should not forget that this is merely a test for them, nothing more. What Valhalla needs now is only strong warriors. So if they cannot defeat this enemy, then this is where they die. Breki refuses to stand idly by and charges in, inspiring the other warriors to do the same. He throws himself at Hagut, screaming out for the glory of his god, and striking the giant with a fiery blast. The warriors charge in too, but Hagut is not impressed in the slightest and swats him away. Lee asks what they should do after they land, and Ciri explains that she and Rolf will create a distraction. That's when he will fly in and attack, as it seems that Breki at least created a weak spot. Lee didn't see that, but it seems to be true, as there is a scar in Gut's head now. Lee charges in with his wyvern, and Ciri tells Rolf to get the siege ballista. After getting it, they will activate their sagas at the same time. This stuns Rolf, as he has never heard of such a method. Lee approaches Hagut and waits, thinking that he's at a far enough distance from the beast. But suddenly, Gut reaches for him, slapping Lee out of the sky and tearing the wyvern's wings completely. Lee crashes down and stops himself directly in the keep's walls. Razgrid screams out for him, and actually decides to go to where he is. She screams at the other Valkyries, noting that she will leave the protection to them, as now he is their only hope. Lee has never felt this kind of pain before. His arms are twisted, his legs broken, and what's worse, gnolls are approaching him. Lee knows that he has to get up. He has to, but at the same time, he is very sleepy. He closes his eyes, and one thought permeates his mind. Is he really going to die this time? Suddenly, he is awoken from this bad dream, and he is sitting right across Hedda, in their newlywed apartment. What he has in front of him is a piece of the golden apple, and since this is his imagination anyway, Hedda feeds him the pieces. At the same time, Lee subconsciously eats them in real life, and before Razgrid can get to him, he bursts in a holy light, which she identifies as divinity. How can a mere low-class warrior wield the power of a god? Lee rises up, energy surging throughout his body, and the gnolls kind of don't want to mess with him anymore. Lee notices his wounds are completely healed, and he can feel his strength. The gnolls decide to gang up on him, but after they do, he sends them flying with one punch, swearing fealty to Hedda, and maybe Idun. Ciri screams out at him, noting that they are ready on their side. Can he get to Gut? Lee doesn't know, as he doesn't have a ride anymore. But that's when Razgrid appears and tells him to ride on her. Lee immediately gets flustered, wondering what that even means. The warriors charge in on the giant, but even if they do get on him, they can't even make a scratch, so he swats all of them away. Lee is still flustered and asks what she means. With one word, Draco Razgrid transforms into a mighty dragon. She thinks she now understands why Odin forbade their direct intervention. He is strong, stronger than anyone thought. This battle is his to fight. He will have to claim victory with his own hands. She tells the warrior of Idun to climb on her, as the other warriors are giving their lives to buy them time. They shall not disrespect the dead. Hagut is getting swarmed, even if not injured. This is becoming increasingly annoying. Lee sheepishly climbs Razgrid, and they ascend into the sky, with Lee barely able to hold on due to the high amount of speed. Ciri and Rolf look up at this, and Ciri decides that now is the opportunity they were looking for. They aim the ballista and activate both of their sagas at once. Breki is not out of the fight yet either. He screams out his god's name and activates his own saga. He is called the Son of God. Ciri's and Rolf's sagas activate at the same time too, and Lee descends on Hagut. Breki aims his mighty axe at Hagut's ankle, and just as Ciri shoots the bolt, he smashes it into Hagut, making him injured from two fronts. At the same time, Lee charges forth, summoning his spear. He knows that this is the only strike he will be afforded, so he bets everything on it. He uses the full power of his saga, drilling right into Hagut's head with a force so big that it almost creates a tornado of his own. After they are finished though, they can rest, as Hagut, the mighty warrior of Loki, has been defeated. After this arduous battle, the halls are lively and filled with laughter. The Valkyries arrive too, now dressed in celebratory garbs, and honor their bravery with drink. The warriors all raise their drinks in the air, showing respect to the Valkyries. Reganleaf apologizes profusely for not being able to fill the cups of everyone. They cannot toast just once all night, right? Instead, they can let her sister, the Ice Princess Razgrid, fill the cups of the two who stood out the most today. The warriors cheer for her, using both her name and nickname, making her want to beat them all up, but she clears her throat and announces that she will call the warriors out. The first is the warrior of Thor's legion, Braki. The warriors cheer for him as he makes it to the stage, and Razgrid announces the second warrior, the only one from Idun's legion, Lee. The warriors cheer even louder, remembering him, as he was the one who was visited by a Valkyrie. How lucky. They also remember him as the one who rode on a Valkyrie, making Razgrid even more annoyed. Ingrid makes the second announcement, because of their sizable announcements. These two will be promoted to inferior-ranked warriors. Lee heard of this name once before. Isn't that the same rank as Bjorn? The warriors cheer for their new champions, and Regenleaf holds a toast. They will drink and celebrate the victory of today together. Brocchi cheers with Lee, and he feels kind of giddy. He didn't expect it when he first came here, but this cheery, loud atmosphere feels really good. He chugs down his drink in an instant, and the warriors cheer for him as he dances drunkenly. In the shadows of the hall, a mysterious man talks with a familiar shadow. He managed to use divinity at the lowest rank, which is very impressive in its own right, but even his kids could do that much. The mysterious person says nothing, making the man sigh. Since she asked so nicely, she will help out just this once. With that, he leaves the hall, nobody seemingly noticing him. One whole week later, on a bright and sunny day, in Lee's inferior-ranked warrior lodging, which has chickens, apparently, he is taking a very deserved snooze. But suddenly, he is awoken by a large thud coming from outside. He jumps up, wondering what is happening, and he sees a mysterious person in front of him, the same man from yesterday. Lee wonders why he has thunder when it's so bright out. Is this the Truman Show or something? Anyway, he asks the man who he is, and the man speaks with a raspy voice. He asks if he's the inferior-ranked warrior Lee, who defeated 2 commander-level gnolls and even repelled a giant in battle. He is being treated as a champion among the low warriors, but useless stuff like that, his kids could do within a blink. Lee stares at the man as he uncovers himself and knows one thing, that he is incredibly strong, maybe even stronger than a Valkyrie. This is Ragnar Lodbrok. He came here to fight, as he wants to see all the power that he has. Lee asked him who he is, but much more importantly, why is he suddenly showing up wanting to fight? He doesn't want to fight without a reason, right? Ragnar thinks on it, but he sees no need to give a reason to a man who is about to die. Lee's heart drops as he says this. This mysterious warrior has suddenly appeared before Lee, but what could be the purpose of this rather hostile visit, and what will Lee do? Seeing no other way around this, Lee gets dressed and faces Ragnar, summoning his blades as he does so. He makes the first move, summoning his saga to dash in and strike, but Ragnar easily blocks it. Lee strikes again and again, but Ragnar keeps parrying, making him wonder if this is some kind of parrying exploit. If that's the case, he dashes behind him and rushes in to strike, but he's suddenly sent flying as Ragnar has kicked him. He flies directly through a tree before barely stopping at another. He coughs, catching his breath, shocked that this man is so strong. If it weren't for his Aiden blessing, he would have been gone right then. Ragnar approaches, noting that the warriors who die here become steel warriors, and if they die as those things, they go to the true resting place of warriors. So, even if he dies, he shouldn't feel too bad about it. With a fell swoop of strikes, he cuts down the tree until he gets to Lee, and stops as he doesn't find him there, because he's already in the air. Ragnar smiles, telling him to give it his all, because he's going to take him head-on, no matter what. Lee descends on him with impressive speed, and then transforms, summoning his skullbuster and aiming it directly at Ragnar's head. The ensuing blast sends a ripple throughout the forest, and Ragnar thinks this is an entertaining technique too, but still not nearly enough. He must try to draw out more of his strength, as he wasn't joking when he said he could die. To emphasize his point, Ragnar smites Lee into the ground, and smiles as he raises his fist high in the air against the struggling Lee, and smashes it into his face, the punch being so powerful that it terramorphs the area. After the strike is dealt, Ragnar walks away, sad to see that this is the end. He was actually hoping for more. He picks up his sword, wondering if that guy's insight was only to this level. Suddenly though, Lee surges with divinity, rising to his feet and donning the visage of a true warrior. Ragnar is glad to see that the rumors about him using the power of a god are true. He must be trusted by his goddess. But if he keeps recklessly covering his tracks with that technique, Lee immediately falls to the ground, Ragnar expecting it, because that's what usually happens. After a while, Lee slowly opens his eyes, and the first thing he sees is Hida, who seems kind of worried for him. He immediately gets up, thinking that this is another dream, but it's not. She was just worried because he slept for a long time. Lee tells her all about it. Some crazy-ass guy arrived in front of his quarters and attacked him for some reason. He thought he was going to die, he says, as Ragnar is right there, and wonders if he has the nerve to continue. Lee asks why he's here, and Hedda introduces him formally. He is Ragnar Lodbrok, his mentor from now on. Lee notes that he already has her, and Ragnar never mentioned that he would become his mentor. Hedda can't stand to hear them bicker like this, and explains to Lee that she's not enough on her own anymore, which is why she pestered him, and even made him come here. Ragnar admits again that it's impressive for an inferior-ranked warrior to use the power of the gods, but all of his kids can do that already. If that's all there is to him, the disappointment she will face will be huge. Hedda knows that soon, he will change his mind, maybe even beg to learn for him. She turns to Lee and notes that she trusts Ragnar, so he can show him his saga. Lee trusts him if she trusts her, and is swiftly handed a steel feather, a tool that allows one to show their sagas to others. Hedda guides him on how to use it, and Ragnar waits patiently, wondering what could be so extraordinary. As soon as the scroll begins going and going, Ragnar is shocked and asks Sir Lee what he was doing while alive. Hedda is happy to see this, and asks Ragnar, if Lee's saga becomes complete, how far would he go? Ragnar looks at her with a serious face, but sees that she's determined, so he takes a deep breath and notes that he can at least go to Sigurd. Lee asks what that is, so Hedda explains that it's a mighty warrior, worthy of being called the strongest in Valhalla. Hedda is curious about the maximum now, but Ragnar doesn't say. He slumps over Lee and notes that he just has to teach him right. Hedda smiles, but advises him not to go too wild like today, although Ragnar thinks she's just holding on to Lee like a chest full of gold. Hedda and Ragnar both walk out, with Ragnar noting that his saga was unbelievable. He didn't believe that was even possible, so he's glad to teach him, as things will get entertaining. Hedda still hasn't had her question answered, though. How far does he think Lee can go? Ragnar looks at her. She's proud, but then looks away, not answering, his eyes betraying a tinge of fear at what Lee might become. The next day, Ciri meets with Rolf and the others, glad to see that he finally become an inferior-ranked warrior. It's nice to see him like this. Rolf notes that it's thanks to her, but it seems that one person is missing from their group. That is when Lee arrives and greets everyone. The new warriors are very glad to finally meet their hero, the one who rode and was even visited by a Valkyrie. Lee looks at Ciri, but she points at Rolf, who told them all of this. He tried to tell them about defeating the giant, but they didn't care as much. Suddenly a Valkyrie arrives and tells them to pay attention. She introduces herself. She will be the leader for this expedition, Gandur of the Uller Legion. This expedition is a small one, composed of inferior warriors from the Uller and Idun legions, but they shouldn't let their guard down. Even if small, this expedition will not be an easy one. The warriors complain, making Gandur laugh, as they didn't expect to just laze around, right? Lee thinks the Uller region sure has a relaxed atmosphere, and Gandur grabs their attention, calming them all down. She notes that they will discuss the details after they arrive. Do they have any questions? Rolf asks where they are headed specifically, and Gandur stops herself for a moment before saying that they will be going to the land of the Dark Elves, where the endless night persists. Svartalfheim. Lee is shocked to hear about Dark Elves being around here, since this is more of a Norse setting. Svartalfheim is a dark place. The branches extending from the ashen trees in its land intertwine, forming a ceiling that blocks the sky. That is why it is called the World of the Endless Night. As the group makes its way there, Lee is immediately struck by the darkness, even though it's daylight. This area is entirely different, and it's rather humid. Is this really where the Dark Elves live? After everyone arrives, Gandur gets to explaining their objective, and that is to exterminate a beast. It seems that a member of the Dark Elf family, who supplies Valhalla with its medicinal herbs, woke up a basilisk from its hibernation by accident, or so he says. Ciri asks if she's talking about the King of Serpents, and Gandur confirms as such. For this mission, they will be specifically deploying the White Silence. Everyone cheers, glad to finally get to ride it, but Lee is just tired, wondering what it will be this time. He decides to ask Ciri, and she's actually happy now, noting that it's something truly amazing, and he will definitely love it. Soon enough, a bunch of dire wolves with white fur appear, and the warriors admire them, even Lee thinking that they look cool. They immediately get to riding them, Lee finding it incredible that they are super fast but still quiet. It's like riding on clouds. Gandur sees Lee riding quite well, and notes that she's impressed. It's all thanks to his saga, though. Gandur goes further, licking her lips as she notes that he's quite a desirable talent. Lee just blushes and laughs. Gandur turns her eye on Ciri, and notes that she needs to attend to some matters regarding the Dark Elf Council. She will be leading her troops and visit the family in question. Ciri agrees, and so they split off. The main group swiftly arrived at the Mallow family ancestral village. As they arrive at the entrance, a guide, one Talaris, greets them, wishing to escort them to the head of the family at once. The warriors follow him through the streets, but the people around don't seem to be looking too kindly upon the warriors of Valhalla, and Lee notices this. Their names are in gray too, which is neutral. At least the guy in front of them is green, so he's not trying to deceive them. After a bit of walking, they arrive at a pretty sizable castle, and upon entering, Talaris guides them to a dining hall, where he reports that their guests have arrived. The head of the Mallow family, Malice, gets up, noting that they must be tired from their journey, so they should sit down and share a meal with him. The warriors easily get comfortable, the maids pouring them ale, and Malice raises a glass, urging them to drink. The warriors all look at Ciri with puppy dog eyes, and she relents, letting them have one drink. The warriors cheer with their drinks in hand, Lee looking around as he's about to drink, but at that moment, his heart sinks at what he sees. With no warning, He rises up and snags everyone's drinks, throwing them in the air, before screaming at Siri, who knows what this means. She gives the order to escape, with Malice giving the order to seal the main gate at the same time. The warriors rush out of the dining hall with Lee at their front, and he sees that there are more enemies above them. There sure are. A bunch of archers that look exactly the same, preparing arrows. So the warriors defend themselves using the shields, while Lee rushes forwards on the closing gates, and just before they can seal them, he kicks the elves away, allowing them a swift escape. Malice is left in the silence of the situation, and he begins sweating as his mind tries to reason what just happened. How? They gave no signs. Just how did he know he was a follower of Loki? As the warriors bash the door of the castle away, Siri takes a whistle in her hand and blows on it, making the dire wolves jump up and assist them. Behind them, though, the archers are already set and unleash a flurry of arrows at them, but Lee stands in the front, pulling up his sleeves to reveal some tattoos. These were apparently painted by Heda. They are rune engravings, as by putting them on his body, he can use magic. What she did, though, is a temporary engraving. He can remove it at any point in time. A true engraving wouldn't be able to be so easily erased, and it would be a problem if he wanted a stronger one later. There aren't many places for runes on one's body after all. Lee saw the rune on his back and agreed, and now he uses that same runic magic to blast the arrows away with a thumb. The archers completely awestruck. Malice tells them to stop gawking and chase after the warriors. Unfortunately, they are already past that measly wall, and Malice falls on his knees. He damns it all. How is he supposed to explain something like this? How? After the warriors get far enough away, they stop and assess their wounds. Some have gotten hit by the arrows, and one of them takes his out and licks it. It seems that the arrow is coated with a rather potent poison. If they were ordinary men, they would have died the moment they were hit. One of the warriors asks if they can stop a bit to tend to their wounds, but Siri tells them to do so while moving. Stopping right now will be too risky. They can afford to relax only when they meet back up with Gandur. Back at the mansion, Malice shakes as he stares at his lord, who notes that he has failed him. Malice apologizes profusely, and he sincerely asks him to borrow the basilisk, as he will find a way to deal with them. The god tells him that he can't do it, but he shouldn't fret, as he has made preparations for this exact situation, and it should be on the move by now. The warriors continue their journey, and Rolf asks if he learned the family head was a bad guy through his saga, and he confirms as such. He also thanks Siri for trusting him right away, but she thinks it's only natural. They are comrades after all. Suddenly, she sees something that makes her eyes narrow. She screams out the ambush, but one of the warriors gets impaled by a shadowy fiend that has come out of a portal. Lee, just from seeing him, knows that he's an incredibly strong foe. This is Marcus, the Regenerator. The warriors charge in, smashing Marcus directly in the head, but he easily tanks it and slashes the warriors open. The other warriors are shocked. He took down 3 of them with one swing, but what's more, his wounds seem to be healing completely. Siri knows about the Regenerator and commands the others to mount their wolves and get away from him. They try to do just that, but Marcus refuses to just let them go and unleashes a bunch of fiendish snakes out of his hands, which begin to attack the dire wolves. Siri tries to get out of the way, but Marcus begins moving onto her. Seeing this, Siri unleashes a flurry of attacks, but Marcus once again tanks them and charges in, Siri pulling out her knives, barely having enough time to block his strike. Even then, he uses his leg to kick her away. Seeing this, Rolf immediately activates his saga and sends an arrow that makes Marcus burst into flame, before rushing through and grabbing Siri. Unfortunately for him though, that did nothing to Marcus, who is now ready to rip him apart, but he doesn't have time, as Lee charges from behind, forcing him to block his strike. From now on, he will be his opponent. As they hold their blades against each other, Marcus smiles and unleashes his snakes once again, who try to apprehend Lee, but he easily cuts them up and prepares to strike again. Since this bastard doesn't want to dodge attacks, he hits Marcus directly with divinity. Rolf notes that it was a clean cut, but that Regenerator will just keep regenerating. Marcus thinks the same. He smiles at Lee for his futile attempts, but he just looks back at him with his glistening eyes. Ragnar told him more about his divinity. It's a power that isn't just limited to recovery. It can suppress the blessings and powers of beings too. And as he experienced, fighting while constantly putting out divinity is a foolish tactic. He has to use it with his head and activate it only at the moment of the attack. Suddenly, Marcus feels something he hasn't felt in a long while. A new injury, actually bleeding. Now this weak-looking warrior in front of him has just become a major danger to him, so he needs to get serious. They charge at each other, trading blow after blow, with Lee seemingly pushing him back with his divinity. Rolf cheers for Lee, telling him to finish that bastard off, but Siri knows that, even if he has the advantage, as long as the opponent stays in defense mode, Lee will get tired first. She refuses to stand idly by and charges in. Lee is getting tired. He barely dodges out of a pretty close strike and pushes himself away, steeling himself before he charges in once again, thinking that he must finish this entire thing with one singular strike. Unfortunately though, Marcus has another trick up his sleeve, as he impales Lee with his tail, allowing him to move in and try to cut the stationary target down. At the same time though, Siri tackles him, surprising Marcus. Even if she cannot injure him, she can at least push him. Lee knows that this is his only chance, so he moves in and impales Marcus right in the gut. But he's not done yet, as he activates Skullbuster right inside of him, making Marcus explode and die instantly. The god feels this and wonders what just happened. It seems that his trump card, Marcus, has died. He tells Malice to halt the evacuation for now, as they have no choice but to use the nuclear option at this point. The Basilisk. The warriors all gather around Lee. He seems to be sleeping despite his injury, making Rolf wonder if they should just wait. Siri has a bad feeling about this place, so they must leave quickly, while they still can. Suddenly though, they hear a large roar looming throughout the forest, and they all know it's the Basilisk. But from which direction? Siri gives the order to scatter. Their top priority is to regroup with Gandor, but they don't need to reunite. The warriors say their goodbyes, hoping to meet again in Valhalla, which Rolf sees as pretty damn ominous. Siri tells them to get going, for Asgard and the 9 realms. Rolf asks what they should do about Lee, but she will take him, so he should go too. Rolf just tells her to be careful, clearly worried as he makes his way away from the forest. After he does that, Siri looks at the sleeping Lee and begins to slowly activate her saga, the Wolf Witch. She transforms into a dire wolf of her own, grabbing Lee and running away with him. At the same time, the Basilisk walks around the forest, detecting many new morsels to feast on. Lee hears his name being called out as he rests, again and again, until he finally wakes up, expecting to see Haida, but he actually sees Siri, and right above him too. He gets flustered, but she tells him to keep quiet, as they are surrounded by the enemy at every turn. If they start moving, the blessing of stealth she cast on both of them will weaken. They will start chasing them at that point, and a battle is unavoidable at that point. Lee knows that because of him, she is in danger too. Hasn't she thought about taking Rolf and the others to just get out of here? Siri looks at him, her eyes pinned on his face. He has a very special power. She can admit that, and losing him would be a loss for all of Valhalla. Personally though, she also enjoys fighting alongside him, so much so that she doesn't want to let him go to the warrior's rest early. Lee realizes what this is. Once again, just like in his world, he is trusted, and he never wishes to betray that trust. He thanks his captain, who notes that the situation became so dangerous because he didn't wake up as quickly as she expected. She tried all sorts of things to wake him up too, making Lee wonder what exactly she did try. Since he has woken up, it's time to move, and she's counting on him. Lee gets serious, and with her transformation, they begin to move, Lee telling her to leave it all to him. Due to his determination, Lee's saga gets activated on Siri, who now realizes what it feels like. Dark, twisted eyes look at them from all around. The mamba-like serpents descend on them, but Lee cuts them up. Even if he has just woken up, he is agile enough to cut them up with all sorts of techniques, like a vertical slash, a horizontal slash, or even a dicing slash. However, Lee can also feel a bigger enemy coming, and that enemy is none other than the Basilisk, who crashes down to their level as he rips through the trees. Siri tells him that it uses some sort of paralyzing glare. He shouldn't meet its eyes no matter what. Lee jumps up from Siri's back as the Basilisk strikes, landing down again, and Siri turns around, allowing Lee to face the mighty beast face to face. His eyes glow as he tells Siri to go, but as they charge in, the Basilisk lets out a bunch of green smoke out of his mouth, likely poisonous. Knowing this, Lee unleashes his runes once again, blasting the toxic gas away and allowing Siri to jump high into the air. Lee uses his jumping saga to go even higher, and the Basilisk knows it only has one chance, so it stares him down as he rushes in with divinity. It continues staring, trying to make him into stone, but Lee's divinity blocks that, and he summons a heavy lance to eliminate the Basilisk once and for all with an amazingly heavy strike. After this arduous battle, Siri transforms back out of exhaustion, and Lee can barely stand up, so it would be much safer if they rested up a bit. Lee looks at the head of the Basilisk, its gaping maw now visible to them, but something glows inside of it, what seems to be a blade. He picks it up, impressed by how much it glistens, but suddenly, Siri screams out his name, noting that they are surrounded once again. Lee thinks the situation is really bad. They don't have the strength to fight now. Siri, though, tells him to go and leave this situation to her. Lee sees how shallow her breathing has become. Her hands quiver, so he refuses. Either they survive together, or they don't at all. Siri cannot deny such determination, so they have each other's back. The serpents strike again, the tired warriors using all they have at their disposal to not get hit. But suddenly, a bigger one appears. Lee can't believe there's more, but Siri tells him not to be shocked yet, as more of the same kind appear, surrounding them. There are a total of 5 massive beasts. There is no way out, so Siri asks if he still has the strength to fight. Lee would like to say yes, but he cannot use divinity anymore, and even the sagas can be used twice at most. However, even if they cannot escape, they will fight with all they have. Siri laughs. He has become a true warrior of Valhalla. They scream their god's name as the beasts charge in, but suddenly, Rolf and the other warriors arrive, rushing in to help, and with them is none other than Gondor, who immediately kills a serpent and tells the others to eliminate all of them. As Lee faces a bigger one, it suddenly gets split in two, and the man who did it is none other than Ragnar, who tells him to leave the rest to them. Lee is very glad to see him, and Ciri seems to be too. Lee is shocked that she actually has a feminine side too. Using all of their combined powers, it takes a short amount of time to defeat the serpents. Ragnar congratulating them all for fighting well. The warriors cheer around him, very glad to meet such a legend, and even Ciri is awestruck, with Lee not having known that this guy is a legend. Since their mission is complete, Gondor notes that they should leave. They will investigate the Mollo family along with the Dark Elf Council. Seeing as the Regenerator showed up, the giants are definitely involved. She also congratulates Lee for defeating such an amazing opponent. She will inform Ulir so that he can be rewarded, and also, she was right about him being such a desirable talent. Seeing as this is the third Valkyrie that turned their attention to him, the others feel kind of jealous, especially Rolf. After they return, Lee hands Hedda the hilt she found, but she has no clue as to what it might be. What she can say is that it's no ordinary item. Many traces of war were left in it. The current front line of Ragnarok is a stalemate, but before, there were great and intense battles all around. Traces of that time remain all over, and that sword fragment might just be a part of a weapon used by a warrior of the time. Lee knew it had some kind of significance, so it's best to just keep it for now. Hedda also mentions that they should go to Idun, as they need to report on this expedition. They go to the port, taking a rather small boat compared to the other ones, and rowing until they arrive at the temple. As they walk, Hedda notes that Idun has also prepared a special gift for him, making Lee excited. Hedda is looking forward to it too, and Lee notes that he will show it to her when he gets back. With that, he drops the golden apple, and Idun appears, Lee now seeing the full picture of her beauty. He bows down, and she notes that she heard about his great merits. Without him, they wouldn't have dealt with the giant as easily as they did. Lee notes that it's thanks to her blessing, but she's just glad he returned. Also, she heard he rode a comrade in battle, a beautiful female warrior no less. Lee is surprised that rumors of that reached heaven too, but she was just teasing. Having completed his expedition, she has prepared 2 rewards for him, and he may choose one. The Heavenly Horse Garment, which allows the user to transform into a flying horse, or Unnir, is basically a pocket dimension where he can store stuff in. Lee is impressed. Both are amazing items, so he thinks long and hard, making Idun giggle, and explains that he shouldn't worry. If he achieves something great again, she will give him the other item. Lee thinks that this is right. He should think positively about it. He decides on an item, which is the pouch, which Hedda didn't expect. She thought he would prefer the wing garment. Lee explains that he would need a teammate for that, and in online games, getting more inventory is always best. Hedda has no clue about what he's talking about, but she's glad he's happy. Starting today, he will have new lessons with Ragnar. She hopes he's excited. Lee kind of is. That guy seems to be a legend after all. Ragnar is waiting around in Lee's homestead, noting that today is a disgustingly nice day. Thank you for watching. See you next time.